empires, at least in the region, in Arabian Peninsula, around that, and what do they say or tell about Mecca? Hello, everyone. This is Al Fadi, and as always, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your interactions with us, for taking the time to watch this series. And my hope and prayers is that not only you've benefited a great deal from it, but that you are sharing it also with others. We give you our permission, of course, to download it and even share it on your own platforms. I mean, make sure you give credit at least to Dr. J and the work and the research that he is sharing with us to our channel. But we want you to know that this is for you to benefit from. And hopefully, if you're a Muslim, take us up on the offer to go and inspect even anything we've shared. Don't take our words for it. These days, it is so easy to find resources to either collaborate, or if you want to refute what we're saying, share it with us. Give us the chance to respond to any claim that you perceive to be a valid claim that could refute any of the data that we're sharing. Today, we're going to talk about empires, at least in the region, in Arabian Peninsula, around that, and what do they say or tell about Mecca. With that in mind, I want to turn my attention now to Dr. J. Dr. J, what do empires, civilizations tell us about Mecca?
Oh, that's a good question. That's another $1 million question. This is another big gaping hole that we're going to bring up. We've been talking about the standard Islamic narrative, the hole in the standard Islamic narrative, coined by Dr. Yasir Qadhi back in 2020, June 8th. And of course, the big difficulty that all Muslims are facing, and Yasir Qadhi and everybody else, concerning Mecca is proof for it. They need to find proof for it. Because of the references, the enormous amount of references, both in the Quran, also in the traditions, that refer to this place called Mecca. It was there at the time of Adam and Eve. It was there in chapter 21 at the time of Abraham. It was 1900 BC, and it was also, according to the traditions, it's where Muhammad was born and grew up. It was where the Qibla was changed down to in 624. So therefore, all the mosques are supposedly facing there. We talked about that. We referenced the difficulty with the whole reference after reference of the prophets, up to 300 prophets that are buried there, and yet we can't find even one of them. And so we're now going and we're saying, okay, these are plural problems. We've looked at the maps, couldn't find them on any maps at all from the time of Ptolemy in the 2nd century. We went to the trade route. We looked and saw what Patricia Crone did by debunking the trade route theory that was introduced back in the last century by Montgomery Watt. And then we went and looked at the sea route theory and showing that the sea route theory only existed on the western side of the Red Sea, on those 5 ports. So you can see the dilemma for Muslims. They've got to try to find some reference point that would show that Mecca did exist, and they are trying frantically to do so. Well, here comes another one, and that is the whole suggestion that if Mecca was there and it was that old and it had been around for that long and it had so much importance and it was controlling all the trade, north, south, east, and west. That's what traditions tell us. That's what Muslims tell us. The standard Islamic narrative is very clear that from the north to the south, that means from Gaza down to Yemen, from Egypt all the way over to Syria and Jordan and Iran, all the way to India, all the trade had to go through Mecca. It was a center trade. That's why Muhammad was important. That's why Khadija, who is a trader, was important. So therefore, the trade routes have to go through. If their trade routes are going through, they're going through empires. They're going through where people live. They're going through civilizations. So the next step we need to do in this search for reference to Mecca or its existence is to ask those peoples from these empires. But I don't want to talk about empires that are far away. I just want to look at the empires that are close by. All those empires that were surrounding what is today Mecca. Let's ask those empires what they know about this place called Mecca. Because certainly someone in those empires had trade with them. If you have trade, that means you have contact. If you have contact, it means you write down who you're trading with. You write down the name of the city. You write down the people who are living in that city. You write down references to what you sell in goods. You have to have receipts. And in all those receipts, the name Mecca should be there since it's the center of all this trade, right? So let's go back to the slide and let's go look at a modern day map of Mecca today. So this is a Google map, and there you can see Mecca where the green star is. And let's ask this question. Was Mecca known? If Mecca was the oldest city in the history of mankind, then someone, somewhere in the areas who are trading with it, surrounding it, should have heard of it, right? Let's look at those and let's ask those empires which were in that area. I'm not looking long way. I want to look at just the ones in that area. And so the first empire I'm going to put up is Saba. Saba, which is the Sabaeans down in the south.
Saba, yeah.
So they would have had trade because they would have gone through Sana'a and Najran up to Taif, up to down to Mecca, up to Yathrib, because that's where the trade went. That's on the Western Plateau. Not one reference. Look at all the Sabaean documents up until the 7th and 8th century. No reference to Mecca. What about Himyar? Himyarites, which are just a little further south. That's where Aden is. Wouldn't they have had it? Since the trade would have started at Aden, they would have certainly had reference, contact with Mecca. Not one word. Well, let's go over to the east. What about the Eastern Arabia? Eastern Arabia, they should have had some kind of trade. They should have known about this place. It's just right across the peninsula from them. Certainly they would have known about Mecca. Not one word. Well, don't start by the east. Let's go even closer. Let's go to Western Arabia, where actually Mecca exists. Certainly they would have had some reference to Mecca. They would have known about this place. Look at all the documents coming out of Western Arabia, out of Yathrib, out of Taif, out of Tabuk, out of Khaybar, and even down as far as Najran. So from Najran up to Khaybar, those cities, you know these cities, you've probably been to many of these cities yourself. They still exist today. Did they have any reference, any documentation? Not one word. Let's go further north. Let's go up to the Nabatean area where the patriarchal period or where the patriarchs have. That's even earlier. So we're talking about way back in 1900 BC, 2000 BC. Did they have any reference to Mecca? If this is where Abraham came from, is there any reference to Mecca in Abraham's day from the patriarch himself? Not one word. So, okay, well, what about the Himyarites, which are just up the coast away from Himyar? They're coming more later. Is there any reference? Not one word. Well, let's go to the Assyrians. Okay, the Assyrians, way up there in the north. They should have had some reference, any type of contact. Not one contact whatsoever. And then we go to the Babylonians. The Babylonians, we know about the Babylonians. You can hear their references go all the way back to 4th and 5th and 6th century, all way back into the 6th and 7th century BC. Certainly they would have known about the Mecca or anything to do that. Nothing. Let's get something a little closer to home. What about central Western Arabia, where Tema is? That because Tema was also a very important place during that period. Did they have any contact with Mecca? Not one word. And then we're going to go here to the Persian period, the Persian area. So can we see any place there that has any reference to Mecca? Not one word. And then way up to the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, did they have any contact with Mecca? Not one word. No one had heard of any place called Mecca. Not one of them had heard of Mecca. Just look at that. I mean, just look at the panoply of red circles and also red rectangles. Certainly someone somewhere should have known about Mecca. We can't find any reference. Not one of them had heard of Mecca. Let's just emphasize that point, proving that this is a real problem for Muslims. They've got to do something at this. Now, I've showed this to many people, and I didn't go through all the step by step, just showing this map. What does that show you? What does that tell you when you look at that?
Well, it shows a lot of civilization and empires that surrounded the area where Mecca is, and it is definitely surprising that none of them even gave a hint of Mecca.
None of them gave a hint of Mecca, proving that there is a real problem here. And I think for Muslims, and I'm talking to Muslims right now, if you're going to continue to suggest that this is the oldest city in history, if you're going to continue to suggest that this is the history, this is the city that Adam and Eve were thrown down to out of the Garden of Eden, if you're going to continue to suggest that this is where Abraham was there, going into the Kaaba, destroying the idols, and also throwing Hagar out of of Mecca out into the desert, if you're going to suggest this all happened there in Mecca, you're going to have to start questioning these empires. You're going to have to start questioning these civilizations, because they should have known about this place. Where are you going to go then to find your support? Because you always, historically, you want to go to those outside of your own empire, outside of your own environment, to find support for your environment and for your empire, in this case, for your city. The fact that we can't find reference to it anywhere suggests to me that there just was no Mecca. Especially when you stop and think, according to the standard Islamic narrative, they controlled the trade. Khadija was a trader. Muhammad worked for her as a trader. Where did they trade to? All the way up as far as Gaza in the north. You have reference after reference going up to Gaza, coming back at the Battle of Badr. What those Medinans who were coming back, the Qurayshi tribe, where were they coming from? From Gaza in the north. They were coming back down to Mecca. If they were way up in Gaza, look where Gaza is way up in the Mediterranean, up where Jerusalem is. Right. If they were way up there, and that means everybody up in Gaza should have known about Mecca. Certainly they would have spoken about it. Certainly there would be receipts of their trade. Certainly there would be documentation about this place called Mecca. Right. Not one word.
Amen. Thank you so much. And by the way, folks, when you watch this video series, and especially this particular video, certainly we are going to continue with our basically critical assessment of early Islamic history and the standard Islamic narrative. Now, we are hopeful that by the time you get to this video, that more actually videos have been produced to continue this series, because this series will take a large number of videos. But I am confident that, Lord willing, we will be able to continue before you even notice that you reach the end. But even if you did, we will produce more along this line, and we will add it to this particular series. So rest assured that we will be taking our time, simply because we want to give you a very clear, easy, and precise tool for you to digest and be able to share it with others. Every video will serve at least one major point, making it very easy for everyone. Instead of being exposed to a large number of evidence all at once, like we're dumping it on you, we are basically putting it all together one by one for you. Again, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. J. And until next time, have a blessed day.